Welcome to the Wooden Work podcast. We are your hosts, Josh from Josh Taylor Woodworking. It really fucks me up when I have to say my name twice, but and Paul from JCR Builds.
Hello.
I need to work on that. And we have a special guest back again. This is our first repeat guest, is it? Is it?
No, we had Jerry on the other week. We had Jerry.
So you're second repeat guest.
Second's
Oh,
good.
so you're at second.
Well, to be
Regan
fair
from
though,
the
Josh.
Google.
To be fair though, Josh, it is actually your first repeat guest because you didn't do Jerry's because you were off away.
Yeah.
So it's your first. So there you go. Regan, you have Josh's cherry.
Oh, I'm honoured, bro. That's awesome.
So yeah, thanks very much for coming back, Regan.
Yeah.
How are things doing over in New Zealand?
Oh yeah, good. It's head down, bum up over here at the moment. Flat out, just building. Building and designing actually. Building during the day. I'm doing a renovation on a batch or a crib. I'm not sure what you call a holiday home. Here it's called a batch, and if you're in the North Island, a crib in the South Island.
Oh, cool.
It got smashed.
Is that like a log cabin, or is it like a log cabin type thing, or
no? It's just like a beach house. House, a second home, or not even. You know, you go there to go to your batch at the beach. That's where I live. I live in an area that's full of them, and it's a holiday destination.
Right.
So I'm sort of like one of those locals that lives in a nice part of New Zealand that people want a holiday at, and so chippies are very limited in those areas. So I'm renovating a batch that got nailed by Cyclone Gabriel. So there was a roof damaged and door damaged. But while you're there, you get asked to renovate the bathroom and when you're there, you're doing it all. So yeah. And then in the evenings, I've been smashing out some tool designs, getting them ready, which takes a lot of time.
So with the design process, and it's probably a good thing. So talk us through. Obviously, you're not going to go give us your next multi-million-pound idea, but. So, I mean, if you want to, I could quite happily edit it out. Do you know what I mean? So don't worry about it. Everyone else can find out it later. We've actually finally got some money. But no, just if you could sort of explain to us, because it's something we've noticed people talking about. Because obviously you've got like intellectual property, you've got design property, and then the two things are totally different. So how do you sort of get the process of like, talk about your ruler, for example, because obviously that's out there. So you've got your ruler, you come up with the idea.
Yep.
How do we turn that into a scribble on a piece of paper to market? How do we go about that? Because I've got no idea.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Like hypothetically, let's discuss taking a product to market from an idea. So like you're working along, and tradies are pretty clever buggers. Your hands, like we're hands on, and so let's say you've got this idea for a new tool or a new way of doing something. The first thing you want to do is not tell anybody. Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
And like I think one of the biggest things is that can cock things up is your ego. If you think your idea is like the dog's bollocks, and you want to go and race around and tell everybody, that's totally going to mess you up for the legal stuff down the line. So what you want to do is keep it to yourself, go home, sketch it out, draw ideas. You can build your own prototypes, and what you can do is when you think that you've got something that works, like for example, I had modeled everything up just out of timber, just to gauge, like to be very visual. And then I took that to, I had a friend who was a designer, and I was like, I need this drawn up. So it looks like a set of, I treated it like a building. I was like, I need a set of plans.
So you mean like a CAD drawing, like doing on a computer? When you say design, do you mean like a computer?
Yeah,
so we design wardrobes on SketchUp or Fusion or Blender or whatever. So you mean that
Yep.
sort of design where they made engineering plans, almost architectural plans of the
Yeah. So
ruler,
the
for example.
biggest, so one of the biggest problems is communication. So you need to be able to communicate your idea to someone else, and if you use words, only words, or your pencil drawings, they can be interpreted by them differently.
Yeah.
And so what you need to do is like a set of house plans are so clear, and there's so many layers of it, and there's almost like yeah. You see
Sorry,
that? Eh?
yeah. So just for those that are listening, there's a little cat just appeared behind Regan, just sort of strolled across slowly across the screen.
That cat's name's called Maui.
Maui.
Yeah.
Maui.
Maui. She was she was like a roadside rescue on a that we managed to get, because she was a kitten and just about dying, and we managed to get her in some blackberry bushes, and now she's a obese little happy cat.
Living the good life.
Yeah, totally nailed life. Yeah. So then, where are we apart from the cat?
You say there's many layers of drawings, so basically,
Oh yeah, so you want
they
it
can't
really
be
clear.
misinterpreted.
Yeah. So what you don't want is misinterpreted. Totally, 100%. And then so, but what you can do is you can download a thing called an NDA, and it's a non-disclosure agreement. And so what you do is you can contact anybody and you say, hey, I've got this idea, but before I engage you in on it, can you just sign this NDA? And you sign it, you send it to them, they sign it and send it back to you, and then you just send it back to them with both, you've both got signed copies. And then what that does is that actually keeps your future lawyer, if you do get one, happy, because they go, did you sign an NDA? It's like the first question they ask.
So an NDA is, for those that don't know,
a non-disclosure agreement.
Yeah.
And you can it's just an agreement saying, I'm not going to tell people what.
Because then if they do, they're liable and they can be sued, can't they?
Well, what it does is that if you down the line file for a patent or a design protection, or you file your design, if it's been publicly disclosed, that's another term you'll hear. That means you've told someone out of an NDA, out of a non-disclosure agreement, and that kind of voids your exclusivity to that design. Because what you're trying to do when you do those filings is it just draws a line in the sand of that's the date that was original at the office, at the UK Patents Office or the New Zealand Patents. You know what I mean? So that's so any engagement with any third party, which you'll need if it's a good idea, you need that. Get that NDA in place. It's real simple to do, and then you can talk freely. You're not holding back information. You can send your designs through. You can crack into it, and then so then you can go to, say, like an industrial designer, and they are awesome. They're like the architects of products, and like this is where I go back to, like, your ego can be a problem, because you almost need to be a bit humble to listen to someone like an industrial designer who's not really into creating a new product for just to get it on the shelf to make money. They're into like
does it work, the functionality of
it? They're into the function and how it works and what other things are out there on the market, and what's the best way to design the moving parts, or do you need these moving parts, or it's like
if it's possible.
Yeah, totally. And you can get really good like collaborative input, because especially for someone who, like, say, an industrial designer, that they understand manufacturing or the processes of manufacturing, but they don't understand your craft or your trade on the level that you do, which is what made you come up with that idea. So if you're doing joinery, you've been doing joinery for 20 years, there's all these like fine points that you understand about joinery that
automatically.
an industrial designer has just got no idea on how a glue dries differently to another glue, or the technique for doing something that only you can acquire by being almost like an artisan of the trade. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does.
Because what makes
Yeah.
sense to me doesn't make sense to a plumber, say. And what plumber finds second nature isn't going to stand a joiner. And because we're different trades,
Yeah.
they're not going to understand the finding. Well, I want that mark there because it's, say with your ruler, they don't understand why it's 22.5 mil for the width.
Yeah.
Whereas you do automatically, don't you?
Yeah,
they
yeah,
just
and
care about why am I doing that?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Like, like if you're not a plumber, don't try and design a plumber's tool, because you'll fuck it up and it'll cost you heaps of money.
Well, you don't
better
know.
like stay in your trade because you're already an expert in that field. Like because you've put in so much time and effort into that. And then so now we're at the industrial design stage, and so at that stage there, you can actually it opens the door for all your 3D modeling. If it is, say, a product like let's say we are talking about a product that you can buy off the shelf, so you can get into 3D modeling, which is a really cheap way to it's like the modern way now to test a product all the way so you can get it to a full functioning product without going to mass manufacturing.
Right. When you say modelling here, are you talking about the computer design part of the 3D modelling, or printing it on a printer?
Yeah, like behind you,
physically printing a mock design, so you got a
full
physical
working prototype. Yep,
physical item. Yeah.
Yep. So then you've got that, and so you still haven't filed anything legal just yet, because what you'd want to do is you're still under NDA, so you're still protected. But what you can do is then you can go, well, this size of this printed part or this product that I've created, like you can 3D print parts. You can also get some parts machined if you can't 3D print them, if you need them out of metal. So now you can assemble your working product. And then now you probably want to make some changes because you're like, oh, it's actually a bit smaller than what I thought. Let's make it a bit bigger. And your industrial designer can model it and change it a bit, make some changes, but then you're also going deep dive into your product by then. So then you might actually have some additional changes that you might want to add to it, or features. We're back at the industrial design, and we've just so I've just made my mistake that I've learned from, and I'm not, and I've and so what it is, it's so you've got your files that you're happy with. Now you can do a couple of things. You can go and try, and this is where you look for a manufacturer. And so you find a manufacturer, or you can have like as many potential manufacturers as you like. And when you contact them, you once again sign an NDA with them. So then your design is still protected on paper. You can pretty much show through, say, a stage of discovery that you've every effort along the way, you've made effort to protect your design under NDA, a non-disclosure agreement.
I'm guessing because they don't want to manufacture it, do they? If someone else is already doing the same project, because they're going to lose out, aren't they?
Well, yeah, but it's up to you to do your due diligence and find a manufacturer that might make something.
So can we just so hang on? Have you gone to manufacture? Have you not prototyped? Have you prototyped it now?
Yep. So you've got your working prototype that you're happy with.
Do you pass it out to other people though? So say you had just go with your ruler, for example, because obviously say that's out on the market. So you've got your working prototype. Obviously you've used it because you've got your work. Do you pass that to other people to try out?
No.
Because the problem is, if you did that, which is a good idea in principle, because obviously you're getting other people's thoughts on it. Even though, because if they sign an NDA, which you would do, give a prototype out. The problem is if they tell someone else, or someone else sees it, if they haven't got an NDA. So if you gave me that ruler, say, and I've got an NDA with you, but then someone else on the street sees it on site, that they could then pinch that idea, couldn't they? Because they've seen it. Do you know what I mean? So you don't so you can't pass it out.
But what you're already so far ahead, and then that person is under NDA with you. So that what that does is all you're actually doing is you're just creating a paper trail, just to prove that it's been your idea through the whole process. And so that person who's seen that idea on the street, they've got to prove that they came up with that idea. And it's pretty much like if you can keep tracing your date back further, whoever's got the earliest date is the winner, if you know what I mean.
So even if you did pass that to me with an NDA, and unbeknownst to me, someone on site saw the ruler and went off to try to do it, you could then go back to them and say, hang on a minute, I've got this bit of paper here that says it was my design,
at
my
this
thing,
date.
and this date, which precedes yours. So then you're covered, hypothetically.
So it's creating, you're creating that paper trail of, so let's say worst case scenario, you have two people in court arguing over who came up with it first, and they say, present your when did you do it first, and then when did you do it first, and so you can prove it through your NDAs that you had signed, and then obviously somewhere along the line. But that's hypothetical.
Because obviously I've just thought then, because it hadn't been prototyped, why would you go to manufacturer without prototype? You're not going to go make 100,000 without making sure.
Nah.
It's
so
that's what was sort of.
Sorry. Yeah. So you need to create your prototype to test it, to see if that it works. And then once it's working, because you might need to adjust make adjustments and stuff. And then, so once you're happy with the product, then you can approach a patents lawyer or a lawyer who specializes in intellectual property. And so they will look at it and say, is it so there's two things. There's you can register the design. So if it's a product that's it's a product that's not unique and new, because say the roller, for example, these rollers have been around forever. There's no patent. That's not a patent. Because you haven't invented anything new and novel, but you can register the design. So if you've come up with something completely new and it's never been done before, you go down the route of a patent,
right?
And that's has a higher level of scrutiny by the patents office than a registered design.
And patents can take years, can't they, to get?
Yeah, potentially. Yep. And then I've actually just gone. I'll tell you in a bit. But whereas design protection protects the look, so so if you create something like like say my mouse, so you can get design protection on the mouse, so no one can make one that looks exactly like that mouse, because you might design something that's like just so good around the look of it. Like say the ruler, for example, was a little bit of a clever one because it's dimensional based, so the width and the length and the thickness is actually key to its use. Do you know what I mean? So to change the look of the ruler, you actually have to change the dimensions of the ruler, which changes which just doesn't work. So then it's like someone can make a 50 mil wide ruler and it defeats the purpose of its design.
Yeah, because the width of the ruler is half the stud, isn't it?
Yeah, and so exactly. So I remember that moment when I sort of had that realization of like, holy shit, that's sort of quite key to the design protection. And then then you engage your IP lawyer, and then she'll or he will ask, have you got signed NDAs with these third parties? And you can say, yes, I have. It's all sweet. Because what they do is they file, and it becomes you file with the design office or the patent office, depending on what it's called in each area, and your lawyer does that. And the fees aren't that unreasonable. Like I think in New Zealand it's about $1,200. Australia's $1,400.
So that's about £700-800 then, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. And like I think the UK might be, I'm thinking around 2,000. I could be wrong. China,
wouldn't be surprised if it's more
the
expensive
US the US is around 5,000. New Zealand.
Wow.
It's sort of quite a little bit different, and it's a little bit harder as well. Each region's all completely independent of each one.
So with the design protection though, so you're obviously you file in New Zealand because you're in New Zealand, say.
Yeah.
So
you're protected in New Zealand.
Does that not cover you in the States or America? So if someone was in the state, you have to file in every country where you want it.
Oh fuck me!
Wow. So basically, if there's one country out there, say like some like Andorra, say, which is in the middle of France and Spain, it's tiny. I mean, it's the size of the postage stamp, isn't it? It's a lovely country. I love it.
That could be. You've probably just chosen the most random example, but that might be covered in like an EU.
Let's go with Zimbabwe then.
Let's go with like Fiji. Yeah.
So if someone there, hypothetically, they could then take your design, get the design protection in that random country, but they could only sell it in that country. So
if you, but they won't get the design protection because they actually look around the world if there's anything like that.
So it does cover you worldwide to a point, but not specifically. Almost.
Not specifically. Good question.
It's not something because I thought, wow. So I was just thinking, if it costs $5,000 in the US, you find the cheapest country in the world, you put your design protection in there, job done. Do you know what I mean?
No, not at all, not at all. So what you need to do is you go, my product is going to be used by joiners, say, and it's going to be joiners in the UK, and there's probably going to be some Kiwi guys who want to use it, and some Australian,
UK, USA.
Yeah, depending on your market. And then you're going to be like, well, New Zealand's only, 4.5 million people, and there's probably only going to be 30,000 joiners there. So that's a pretty tiny market. Aussie's 25 million odd people. So you're like, well, there's probably quite a big market there. So this is where you do your research into your market of where you think your biggest customer base is going to be, and that'll make you go, maybe I won't file in New Zealand, but I'll definitely file in the UK, and I'll file in the US because it's huge. But you might invent something like my metric ruler. I wouldn't file in the US because it'd never be used.
No, because they're imperial.
Because they're imperial, so I'm filing my imperial there.
Well, then do you not have to file in like China then? Because obviously Chinesium
There's no point in filing there, mate. It's a fucking It's the world of fake over there, isn't it?
That's what I mean. Yeah, so, that's exactly what I mean, though, because they just rip everyone. That's what I was getting to. They rip everyone off.
Yeah,
so do you have to file there to protect your idea?
Well, if you wanted to manufacture, you can register in China, and they're actually getting. As far as I've found out, it was actually in the James Dyson book. They see the value now in foreign companies doing business in China, and so they're taking international trade, design protection, and patents seriously, and they've been prosecuting. They've been doing prosecutions to protect that. So, like, I've just filed 2 designs in China for that reason. Not that I'm going to be selling in that country, but it's to protect manufacturing. So
that's what I mean. I thought with China they're not very sort of like ethical, should we say, when it comes to manufacturing. I just thought if you're having it
different, it's actually I'm gonna over there it's
certainly people's perception though that China rips everyone off.
It's business. Like I actually had to register my design of my. I actually I did a trademark design in China because I found out that someone in China could register my trademark and then stop my goods from leaving China.
What?
Yeah,
Bizarre.
I know. So you do it, but trademarking is different. So if your logo on both your t-shirts, so you can take that down. You can get your IP lawyer can take your Josh Taylor with your hammer and chisel, and that's your logo, and you can register that as a trademark, and that's really cheap to do. So that means you've sort of drawn a line in your sand, like Patagonia. Like I can't do that because that's a registered trademark. So that
is a big thing anyway.
Yeah. So that's where that trademarking comes in. So you can take your logo, you can bang it on, but you can't just do just a word. It's actually usually a stylized word with some sort of logo, or done in a way like that.
So like Patagonia would be with the because they have the mountains, don't they? And the word Patagonia. That was what will be trademarked is the overall look of.
Yeah. But the actual word, say Patagonia, written in just like straight italic font, they probably wouldn't be able to get over the line because that'll be rejected because you can't just. But if you had a mountaintop coming out of that, then that becomes stylized or localized brand, and then you can trademark that. So let's go back to we've got you're looking for a manufacturer, and so you go and get an NDA signed, and then you can say, can you please price up this for manufacturing, please? Like a per unit price. And so that manufacturer will take your files and they'll go through it, and they'll be like, I don't know, that'll cost you $20 per unit. And you go, okay, cool, thanks. And then you go to another manufacturer and you do your NDA, then you send them your files, and then they say, we can do this for $18 or $25 or $40. You'll get prices back. So you want to get prices back from various manufacturers on it, and then and then you also want to see like samples of their work as well, just so you can see what. Yeah, totally. You've got to do your due diligence, but you also want to know like where your market is as well. So if you go back to your patent, your design protection or your patent, depending on where you want to file, will where you think your market will be. And the thing is it's this is where like I go back to your ego. Like your ego can almost make or break your design, because if you think it's the bee's knees and it's just shit, and you're fat, don't trust what your family say, because your family are going to tell you it's a great idea and they're so proud of you. Because that's what your family do, they support you. So you kind of like, that's why you want like to get feedback from like your industrial designer, and but almost have like a just have an open opinion on it. You almost need to be your worst enemy about your design, so you can really critique your design because you know it so deeply, but you don't want to be attached to it thinking it's good, because it might not be, if that makes sense, because it's going to cost you a lot of money if your idea's a bit
it could be a big pile of money in the shit pile in the corner, couldn't it?
Yeah, totally. But it's a wicked awesome thing to do. Like I have such a blast doing it. Like I've got I was just adding it up the other day because I was thinking about this podcast, what we might be talking about, and I was like, I think I've got like about 12 design protections and one US patent that's been granted. And that one was pretty awesome, getting the US patent granted. I can't quite tell you what that's for at the moment. Just because, but but getting that over the line, like that's a pretty big one because it's almost like getting first place at something of a completely new use.
Well, the US
Yeah.
is going to be a big market as well, potentially, isn't it? Because of the physical size of the country.
Yeah,
So it could be
totally.
it's quite a big deal, isn't it? Especially, I mean, it's not like getting a pat in Fiji, is it? As we just said, like earlier, it's getting one of the US is massive, isn't it?
Yeah. Well,
it
yeah.
is the number one, really.
So
Yeah.
doing something like that can actually like secure. You can almost, if you've got the say like a US patent, then you probably don't need to file in Fiji or New Zealand, or because what will happen is the numbers will be so small in those countries it won't matter.
So so now we've got your physical product back from your manufacturing magnesium.
Yep.
So where do you take it? So then you got to what? You got to look for distribution, or
well, that's depending on that, like distribution. Like nowadays with just with the digital era, you can do it all yourself now, and you see so many people doing it now. Like you can create your own community around the brand. You can control it, and like I think that's what you actually need to do for the first 3 years at least, before you even think about, say, hocking it off to a distributor, because if you can control it for as long as possible, it's quite beneficial, and it's not like the Easter egg getting it to a distributor that you might think. Just because I've not the good rule experience is awesome, and I actually haven't nothing bad has happened from it, but just by going through that process, you learn a lot about what can and can't go wrong, and that makes you sort of see things that have happened with other businesses that you're like, oh, now I see what's happened because they did this and that, and it can be a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that you don't know.
yeah, because you've got like a newfound knowledge because you understand the process. So
you can see,
like the good old thing, if they'd seen it, it wouldn't have happened to them because that's what hindsight's for, isn't it? You know what I mean? As we said.
Yeah, and so you can totally see like products just going completely out of someone's control or hands from the original founder, and it's just because it got once it's out there, it's almost like out there with the wolves, and there's no getting it back. So by holding it and controlling it, I think what the first thing to do is once you've got that product back from the manufacturer and you're starting to sell it, what you're starting to do is you'll start getting market feedback from your product, and then you're like, oh shit, there's something that I've missed here. But because you're placing such small orders on, hopefully like getting so big too quickly is not a good thing. So with the small orders, you can go, oh, I really need to change this little feature on this design. And so you can go to your manufacturer and make those little adjustments to make your product better. And then so as your product, say, might get more and more successful as it branches out, you've still got control on it to make those changes to keep that quality nice and high. Because by getting that market feedback, you're getting real-time use from, say, other tradies and joinery shops that someone will out of the blue might be like, hey, can you add this feature on? It'd be really helpful. This is the way that I use it. And then you're like, oh man, I never realized that you had that little detail is such a problem, if that makes sense.
It does, because I mean, recently I've started selling some of my 3D design printed stuff again, which are basically just tools that I've done. I'm not the only person out there with the same thing, because obviously it's the old I mean, I've got like sander holders and stuff like that. You know, there's loads of them, but I'm doing my own. It's got my own logo on. I've done it. I've got all my CAD drawings and all that. And it's exactly what you said. I made a big batch of side covers for the festival, so set one out to a guy, and basically it failed. So I had to look through the entire batch I'd done. There must have been a problem with the filament that I was using, and moisture got in the filament, and it was just delaminating. So if it had been that I'd done, as you said, 100 or 200, the amount of time that would have been bad. But because it's only small and we're just starting it again at the minute, as you say, I just went through them all, and the batch of, I think it was 12 in a batch, were the same problem. So I threw the 12 away. The roll of filament that I had got thrown away because it was the filament that was at fault. And obviously just moisture just got into it or wet. So at least, as you said, I could control it because it was so small.
Yeah.
And
so with
works,
manufacturing, so needing that like real-time feedback, I think for that first 3 years, you're actually in like you're not even really in a growth stage. You're in a improvement stage. And so you need that real-time feedback, because what in mass manufacturing, before distribution for a good product, I reckon you need to hit a quality control of 1% or less rejection rate. So early on in the game, you can be getting product from your manufacturer, and they're still almost developing systems to make your product as well, to make things better and easier and the quality. And so you might hit a 20% rejection rate. So you're sending your product out and you're checking it and you're like, oh, what? I can't send that out. So you stick it up on the shelf. And then over time, you're like, oh man, I've got 20 of these things sitting up on the shelf. I've sent out 100. So that means I'm at a 20% rejection rate, which is not, and that's it's not good enough for, if you were to, once you've given it out to the wolves, say with a distribution company, that where it's completely out of your control, you need to have it at 1% rejection rate at the point of manufacturing.
Because if you sent 100 out and you got 20 back, say, or 20 people on social saying, you got 20 out of the 100. So you sent 100 out, you got 20 people and had a slight product, a second negative, or whatever.
Negative feedback.
20 people, 20 negative feedbacks on social media.
Can tank you.
Yeah, it'd absolutely fuck you right over, wouldn't
it? So
especially because you've just gone and spent $30,000 in plans, industrial design, legal fees. Do you know what I mean? Like it's almost like I keep going back, like your ego. If your ego can just get you in the shit, so you've got to be like almost like like your I don't know. I keep going back to it because it's like
your number one critic.
Yeah, your number one critic. You got to be your number one critic as hard as you can on yourself. And
so, in the first 3 years, are you going to the post office a lot? Do you know what I mean? To send
them? No, not really. No. So we have a like we've got a courier printer. Like so the digital area you can have. We've got you can have a courier account. You've got Shopify, but I'd be using Wix now because the fees are way cheaper. You can set up all the infrastructure of distribution. Like this is in our shed. Like we've got our own. We do our own distribution from here because it's manageable until you'll reach a point. You'll know where you reach a point where you're just so busy that you actually have to.
Because I hate going to the post office, right? And that would be the only thing that turns me off from selling the product.
Yeah, so usually there's a depot, like a drop-off depot, so you don't have to stand in line at the post office in the line with everybody. There's usually a like we have everything's done. We don't have to go to the front counter. We just have to go to the drop-off. Drop-off.
It's even better in the UK now. So you do your Royal Mail
they can
online.
Come and pick it up.
They literally they will not let, because there used to be that you have to go to the post office and drop it off with your label all attached. They won't let you do that anymore. So you do it online. It takes me seconds to do it. I put a sticky label with a postcode on the package, so the postman knows which package is for where. I put it outside. He picks it up and he puts the postage label on it for me, so I don't even have to print off a postage label.
Oh right, wow.
So I'm sending an item out for, say, second class, just one of the small things like large letter. So it's £1.15, I think it is, for one of the side covers to get posted. I literally put it in an envelope, write on the postcode, put it there, and he picks it up, puts the label on it for me and everything. It's like a game changer.
So how do you distribute then, Regan? Like, how was you distributing at the start? So you print out all your stuff and then you just drop off 20 or 50 rulers to the depot. Is that what you do?
So like I have hang on 2 secs.
That didn't sound good.
The box fell over. But you can buy I'll have like the envelopes ready to send.
Yeah.
And you buy
They
them
look
in
like very
bulk.
much like Amazon envelopes, then, weren't they?
Yeah. So
Well,
I
that's
just
like
buy
Amazon
them in
use,
bulk, and you just order it. You're not doing things by halves, and so you just you just have that, and then you've got your courier printer, which is hooked up. Everything's just hooked up, and there's every platform has a professional to help you through that stage to help you get set up. Like, you don't have to be a whiz at everything. You just have to do what you're told. And there's talented through the whole stage. There's a professional at some element of whatever you need to get it done. You're just the creative founder who comes up with the original concept, and then it'll reach a point where or hopefully it'll reach a point where you'll need to get help in on, or you might need to pass it on to someone, or but if you can hit that 1% manufacturing margin, then that's pretty good. That's awesome.
Yeah. But again,
that's what I'm aiming for, but it takes a long time. But you almost need to be a what's the word?
A cunt.
Yeah,
no, I don't like that one.
Yeah, well, sort of, because like, I don't know, I've always been like I think it's my background as well, like of I just have a real respect for people earning their money and how hard it is for someone to earn money. And if someone's paying me for a product, I really appreciate that. I appreciate their value that they've gone out of their way to do that purchase. So I'm looking at it from their point of view, you know, like I'm trying to put the best that I can forward as well, if that makes sense. Yeah, but then I'm also like, I never turn my brain off. Like I was, my kids were, it doesn't stop. So I'm never happy with, I'm happy, but I kind of think like, what can I improve on this? Or how do I change this? Or it just doesn't stop. And I think there's a lot of tradesmen out there or the really good ones, I think, that are switched, that are sort of, they're built like that. And they come up with all the clever ideas on site, and they're the creatives, you know, and I think they're all capable of coming up or doing what I've done. I feel just having that direction, like there's so much knowledge out there that you can tap into to figure out how to do things now. If you like, the world's totally your oyster.
It's certainly a lot different from when I was doing my apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Like when I was doing mine, I mean, all right, we had dial-up internet, do you know what I mean? But we didn't have Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
know,
totally.
We didn't have broadband. I mean, it's hilarious. Josh is like, I mean, the other week, again, I think it was after you, they were like, so what was your first nail gun? I'm like, you what? I had a fucking hammer, mate. We didn't have nail guns. They did not exist when I did my apprenticeship. Do you know what I mean? And they wouldn't believe me. I'm like, that's what it was 25 years ago. Do you know what I mean? We didn't have nail guns. They came out while I was doing it, but I think it was newly qualified when pass loads first came out.
The big fucking thing. Like
but
that.
they just don't believe it. And I'm like, but we didn't have that. We didn't have social media.
Nah, but even not just social, like just the digital area, the digital space we're in, the access to information and knowledge, and that you can just tap into right in front.
We'd have to go to a library, wouldn't we? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally.
Just go look at something. Whereas now, it's like, what do you want? Oh, hang on a minute, just let me grab my phone. And it's
like you can. Yeah,
you've got more than the world's biggest library in your hands.
Yeah, but also like you don't even have to talk. You can just do anything. Like you don't need, you can just Google Translate, or like I was talking to a company in France, and the invoices all turned up in French, and I'm like, cut and paste, Google Translate, done. I knew exactly what you know what I mean? Like, it's like all rules are gone. It's like it's pretty. I find it really exciting time at the moment.
Don't know. I think it's dangerous as well though, because
Oh, I love it.
I love it.
mate, Josh, you don't know any
It
different
is.
though, mate, do you? You only
What
about
do you- I remember dial-up internet.
thing is, Regan, Josh forgets he's a millennium. He's one of those weird ones.
I
He's
was
not,
laughing at. I
he's
was
not a good
laughing
old
at the
generation.
library.
He's not a Generation X like us. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. But it's just like I get it. Like it's kind of scary, but then kind of like I know that there's just people out there, like maybe like Josh, who's just frothing and just running with it. Because and you know what I mean, like and yeah, like I can and even some of the stuff that I'm doing, I'm just like it's just awesome.
But the thing is, though, it would have been so much different and probably so much harder. Say if you'd come up with this idea, say of your ruler 15, 20 years ago, say just for example, the same process.
Yep.
How much harder would that have been? Because it would have been a shitload of trips by horse-drawn carriage, wouldn't it?
Yep. With
to
letters,
the
handwritten
office.
Dear
You know what I
sir
mean?
or
And
madam,
China,
my
you'd
idea is
have to
awesome.
fly to China to get your manufacturing.
Yep.
You'd spent weeks in the pattern office queuing up.
Yep.
Yep. It's not a case of send an email and it's fucking done. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the thing that I actually think that the patent laws around this are so far behind nowadays. They haven't kept up with technology. So the problem nowadays is you can have a wicked idea, and it will travel faster than you can grow it. And so before you launch your idea, like this is like a thing that before you launch your idea, this is one of the reasons why I'm not telling you what the US patent is. Is like legally I can tell you and I can disclose to all your listeners what it is, but the problem is that it's not quite ready to launch, but someone who's already got the resources to tap into can just smash it instantly and beat us to the game.
That's it. With the big manufacturers, we're talking about the big tool manufacturers, for example. If they see, so that's why
you've got to have a strategy, I reckon. But nowadays, not like back in horse and cart days. I reckon the thing now is you've got to have like, how am I going to get this to market with knowing that I've got big boys watching me, or getting in underneath the big boys before they
under the radar,
before they know what you're getting on. So the problem is with me now is I've actually seen one of the big boys. I know that they're looking at what I'm doing now. So if I bring out a new,
how do you know that?
I've just noticed something that I've gone, oh, that's really interesting what they're doing.
I can be following you on social media. You
not that, but just elements in certain designs that I've noticed, and I'm like,
it's that cat. The cat's actually a spy.
Yeah. The bird's got cameras.
Really? Oh, so you've done something and then they've copied it like 6 weeks later. It's out.
I've seen something kind of fishy. And I'm like,
wow.
And so I've gone to my lawyer about it and gone, and my industrial designer and gone, hey, this is genuinely a feature you've done. What's your thoughts? And then it's like, well, you could go down that road, but is it worth it?
Do you want to spend the 200 grand in court?
And then they're like, well, it is kind of like a compliment, and you're like, fuck. But I know on the bulk of it, I'm actually like I know what my protections are, and I am protected, but there's inklings of fishiness. So then that, to me, that just says, well, if I bring out a new design, like, hey, I've brought out my new square, I know that I've got to be already so far down the racetrack.
Your first market, and they can't beat.
Well, yeah, totally. Like it's just, and that's like, I think you've got to have like a strategy as well of like how you're going to get it to market, knowing that you're still an underdog, which is good if you haven't done anything before. That's a bonus, but if you've done something, I reckon it's
See, the
people
other
will
thing,
be already looking.
the bad thing, should I say? Sorry, if one of the big boys, it happens. I mean, it does happen in industrial stuff all the time, that they get wind of an idea because they've got unlimited resources. Say it was an electronic item, and Sony thought, "Oh, that's a good idea." Sony would beat you to market because they're that big and they're that powerful. They'll snap the fingers and it'll be out there. But the thing is, then, even if it was your idea and you're first to market, and then someone copies you, it could always be sometimes that people will go, "Hang on a minute, the Sony one will be better because of they have
resource.
they have the brand name, they have the
Yeah.
the reputation, should we say? And just because you're the small boy, yours might be better. People won't look at yours because you're just nobody." So do you ever find that was a bit of a problem with the?
I would that's when you can exist in, say, like a niche community as well, so that you're going to get your that's when you'll want to, how do I say this, that's kind of like knowing your market, knowing your customers as well. Like, you might just know that there's a niche opportunity to exist in a space that the big boys can't play in because they're not allowed to, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Which can be like your 3D printed Festool parts or something like that, for example.
Yeah, because the thing is, with that, I mean, there's no point getting them injected molded because the cost of injecting molding these little parts is extortionate. It's not worth it when you can knock them out on a 3D printer in very quick time, fairly cheaply. It's not worth. I mean, that's the reason, obviously, that people like, because obviously you can't. So the thing with Festool, well, you got to look at the design protection side, I suppose. So if Festool did a side cover like the 3D printed one, you can't do it because Festool will close you down within seconds.
Let's say, for example, let's say hypothetically, you've got your 3D printed side part. Now what you're doing is you're like becoming an expert in the side panel of Festools or of the saws or the tool of that. And then you might actually come up with something completely novel that might be an attachment or a completely new way of doing something that you're like, hang on, fuck, this is, none of these tool guys are doing this. So then you can go and patent that idea. And instead of going to the customer market, you can actually go to those big boys and say,
this is
NDA, this is what I've done. How about you just, I've got the patent. And then they go, fuck, that's a good idea. Damn it, he's got a patent. Let's just pay him out.
So,
and then next minute you're working for them, helping them design some stuff. But who knows? So there's lots of ways to there's lots of things.
I've got a good question, mate, which I've been wanting to ask for the last hour. Can you tell us what you're working on at the moment? That's what I'm asking. Is there, what can you disclose right now? What's next?
I've just I've done my 1200 version and 4-foot version rule. So I've done a metric version and an imperial version, and I've just filed everywhere.
Speaking about, I think at the end of the last episode when we had you on a couple of months ago, you mentioned about you were working on a 12, didn't you? You said it was an idea that you had.
So I can disclose now that I've that's what I was working on, because I've just it's all been filed. So now, I'm not manufacturing them yet, just because it's pretty expensive game doing it on a global scale for the legal stuff. But it's pretty exciting. I don't bet on horses or expensive fly fishing gear or anything.
Have you thought about going to Ox Tools with the 1200 or?
Oh, they're aware of it. They're aware of it for sure. But we're working through that. So yeah.
Nice.
I mean, I must admit, I'd be interested in the
relationships there. So yeah,
I'd be interested in the 1200 because obviously you sent us out. Very kindly sent us out one of the folding rules, and I was actually doing some stud work on site. I was like, you know what? It's what it's designed for. I'm going to take it. I'm going to use it because otherwise, there's no point, is there? And it worked really well. I mean, I know that you know that, but it's not the sort of thing I'd normally But then because
right.
I actually use a folding ruler in my workshop bench a lot, one of the standard wooden rules.
Yeah.
But so much so that it's like, oh, because it's not a nice handy size. Your ruler now lives in my work pants because it's perfect for a quick measurement.
Yeah.
You don't have to get your tape measure out or whatever, because I don't like tape measures in my pocket because they're heavy. Whereas the
Yeah.
ruler,
Me too.
it's just a nice little quick measure. But the one thing I did notice when I was doing the stud work, I found that the 600 was a little bit too short on occasion for me. Like maybe a 900 might have been ideal.
Yeah, I've always known that, but you can't go and tell people that that's a good idea.
Well, no, if when a
Like
1200 comes out, mate, I'll be purchasing. I'll purchase.
Yeah,
mate,
totally. So that's like a really good example. So like quite early on, I was like I knew I made the 6, and then I was pretty much straight away. I was like, well, I need to make a 12, but I can't tell anyone I make a 12 because you've got to keep that one under wraps because it cocks you up for your legal stuff.
Well, then you're also saying that your 600 is no good. If you say straight away, oh, actually, you need a 12.
Yeah, but
600 is no good.
Yeah, like to manufacture a mold, you're looking at like $8,000 to make a mold. So just to scratch up that sort of cash, you're like, shit. So that's when you're like, you better just keep your mouth shut, keep chipping away. Eventually, you'll get enough to go, okay, cool. But I'm not at the steel mold stage just yet because I've just been, doing the legal stuff. But now that's all signed off, so that's pretty awesome. So
that's
and then I've got my aluminium one, which has been an absolute hard nut to crack, has finally got the first. So I've did a prototype batch. So I've done prototypes and they work and they're awesome. But my problem has been I just did a prototype batch at where I was trying to I was hitting about 20 or 18% rejection rate because of the laser printing. And
where they actually got the numbers and stuff like that.
So the rule we could build the rule, all the parts, everything. But when it came down to the printing of it, is using a different process than the plastic ruler. It's you're using a laser etching and just the slight half a millimeter play in the gears of the printer was enough to throw in a rejection rate of about 18%. Like I'm fussy. Like I'm like 3. So the rule's made up into 4 parts, and so 3 legs are printed perfectly, and the one leg is out. And so I'm like, that's not on.
Especially on a ruler. Yeah, it's like
yeah. So like it's quite that was really frustrating. So, but now finally we've just done like a 50. I did a 50 batch, a prototype batch, and out of that it was 100%.
That's good.
Were all good. But then what I'll do is I'll increment. You want to incrementally grow that. I'm not just going to go and say make 10,000 because I can't afford that much. But you actually want to grow up in steps and then check the say 200 and then check
the rate.
I'll check every single one because that's what you're wanting to. Because my time's free, even though it'll take ages, but it's part of the process and if you're going to pass it on and for that to go out of your control, you have to know that you've done the best that you can to set up a manufacturing process that has a 1% rejection rate.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah. So like, you've got your idea and that's sort of like what you kind of like the stages and what you want to aim for really of the big picture. But I reckon you've got to have like the big vision, the big picture, like imagine what it's going to just daydream to what it potentially could look like and then work towards it, even though it could be like completely unattainable at the moment. But if this worked out, then that worked out, then that worked out, then that worked out. And you're gonna actually have pitfalls along the way, but
you're almost planning to be the biggest you can be to start with.
You sort of got to have your vision at the end, the end game vision, and then
world
work
domination.
back from that. Not really world domination, but have your end game and work back from that, you know,
Yeah.
and then break it down into like, even if it's 100 steps, they're actually like 100 steps that individually are achievable.
Yeah, that makes sense, as you say, making like, well, it's planning though, isn't it? That, I suppose it comes back to the old 5 Ps, which, I mean, I know Josh has just nipped off again, but the old 5 Ps of what was it? Piss poor planning prevents, or something. What is it? The 5 Ps. Perfect planning prevents piss poor performance, or something like that. Or something
Oh,
along
right.
those lines,
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I can't remember. I remember you used the 5 Ps, and it was something like piss poor performance. Perfect planning prevents piss poor performance. That's it.
Yeah, right. Totally. Yeah.
Which I suppose, especially in the manufacturing game, when you're doing something quite precise, it's quite important.
Well, yeah, and it's also, but it's not just the manufacturing part. I think it's also like just the whole structure. Like, there's a lot more to just like, it's also like the people element as well. Surround yourself with aces, if that makes sense. Like, there's people out there that are just absolute weapons in their field, and if you can like find those aces out there, and then they're your crew, and they're not in your neighborhood, or they're out there in the globe, and that's what that's what the modern digital era gives you as well. Like, you've got access to some super talented individuals and it's borderless.
It is, because one thing else given is, say, brings us back to, say, like with the podcast and stuff, it's networking. It's basic form. I mean, I know you're looking for specific people for specific fields, but like with the podcast and everything else, we're networking. So, you know, we've got the UK, New Zealand, and Australia all on the same call. We're all talking about whatever. This will then go out across, you know, well, it's worldwide, but we have a big audience in the States, Australia, the UK mainly. But again, so that's all through the digital age. The people, you know, if it hadn't been for the podcast, we would never be sat here talking to you.
Yeah,
you know what
totally.
I mean? It's just one of those sort of things that networking really does open up those doors.
Like, one of the reasons, like, I'm enjoying sitting down with you is because I know that there's going to be some guy or girl out there that thinks that might have like a real big dream of something really awesome, and they might not have access to a lot of money to get started. Like, I didn't come from I'm not from big money, but I've or a big, you know, like didn't go to uni or anything like I'm like a true tradie. Like, my dad's a builder, you know what I mean? Like, I grew up, you know, blue collar and did it just by like figuring it out. Like, it's not hard. It's if you want to just do the grind, and it's just hard work, but it's hard work every day. So just get used to it.
I'll just say this is out there now for people to listen and not, because I never knew how to get things to market. You know, we have an idea on how to get things, or you sort of, well, you have not an idea, but you sort of like, oh, well, I've got to do X, Y, Z, but there's so many more steps to it. And of course, this episode is all about those in between steps, and like, don't go telling John down at the pub of your idea, because
and if you're telling John, and if you're telling a guy John down at the pub, he's probably not the best guy to actually be speaking to, because you want to be talking to Jim, who's like head of industrial design at the design firm down the road. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to get a way better positive feedback where it's, you know, surround yourself with aces is a saying that.
Well, as you say though, is just say, like, you know, about the idea. You don't tell people about your ideas, because the problem is with like telling Jim down at the John at the pub, that like quite often you find in the pub, as well, I know, quite often it's tradesmen. You know what I mean? We tend to go for a bevy after work, like.
I get it.
So the thing is, though, as you're telling whoever, oh, I've come up with this great idea, you don't know who's listening. And the thing is, loose tongues after a few beers or whatever, that's $1 million idea has just gone to shit because you've just told everyone about it.
Yeah, or you can also get like like they go, oh yeah, nah, that won't work because, and then they go and tell you about their idea, and then you're like, like that was almost like a bit of a wasted conversation. Whereas you better to just ask how their day was and how was how's the game last week, and
absolutely,
and just go back to your crazy little drawings in your room when you get back home and get into it. But
so just tell us. So just tell us, sorry, last little bit. So obviously now you've got your product now. You've gone to you've got your actual physical product in your hands. It's ready to go out.
Yep.
So then how do you? So obviously because you've got Ox Tools with the 600 ruler, haven't you? Who are like they've rebranded it with theirs.
They're going. Yep,
so
they're going with it,
did you? So what? How did you do that? Did you do you approach them with the NDA saying, "Look, I've got this. This is mine. Do you want a piece of this?"
Oh no, they. So I was just going to town. I was just running with it as quick as I could and developing it, and they just approached me actually because they'd back on sites that they'd gone to by carpenters that were using the good rule, and carpenters on site were pulling it out, and that's how they discovered it. They discovered it on site, and then they
just said, "Can we?"
Well, yeah. So they were like, "Can we have a discussion?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's have a discussion." So so in that sense, I before them, I knew that I would probably be copied, or your time's limited by your time's limited, and so you could either help one of them do it properly, or and see what happens. Like an opportunity like that doesn't pop up often. So and I know that like the big boys, it's not just about the tools that they have. It's they've just got massive access to distribution and a massive team of, you know what I mean? Like that's what you're also tapping into, is the ability to get out there.
Well, you've got access to their network effectively, haven't you? Through
your
rule, all right. You might have,
but it is on like you on terms that everyone has to agree on as well. So. But if both parties are realistic, then you can come to an agreement. If
so I mean, obviously then. So I take it they sign an NDA with you that they can't then take it away from you, almost type thing, or
well, you want to just even any of those discussions, just any sort of like sensitive, confidential discussions, you just want to have that NDA in place, and then you can talk freely, without sort of holding back on certain things. Like you might actually have an answer for something, but that you're not gonna bring it up because you haven't signed an NDA. So,
and that could also make him walk away because you can't give him that. I mean, you see it on Dragon's Den, I suppose, don't you? Sometimes he'll turn around and goes, Peter Jones will ask him, "Oh, so what do you think to block?" Well, you ask him a question, he goes, "Well, we can't divulge that information to you." You're like, "Why? What on an NDA?" You're like, "Well, without that answer, I can't invest."
But then they're doing it in front of and they're going to broadcast it out to the world, and so you can't have an NDA with everybody, So
that's what I mean. So sometimes you've got to be careful about, as I say, because there's no good going on Dragon's Den with your idea.
Nah, I wouldn't not on that, because that's more like some of those companies actually go on there just to get
advertisement,
visibility, and knowing that they're probably not going to do the deal with the Dragons. The other thing too that I'd stay away from is like any of those like fund me projects as well, that you get online, like the GoFundMe or
Kickstarters and stuff like
Kickstarter, and like there's actually individuals out there that are just waiting for the next upload of the next idea, and
take it to market.
And they've already got the manufacturing, they've got the capital, they just go boom straight to market, and then thanks for coming, thanks for the idea.
Yeah, because you're supposed to be Kickstarters and like you're putting your idea up there saying, look, I've got this idea.
in a global space.
I need 100 grand, and they're going to turn around and go, boom, gone.
Yeah, and you've got like no IP protection. You haven't filed anything in any country, but it's global. So you've just plopped your idea in everybody's hands, which was probably like the dumbest thing you could do.
But could you not hypothetically get your IP in, get your design protection in or whatever, then go to the Kickstarter? Because then nobody can actually go and pitch your idea because you've got the protection.
Yeah, but it's a big that's a pretty big risk. Like you'd probably be better to try and stay under the radar as long as possible, so that you can you've got your your manufacturing rejection rate really well. You've got your branding done. You've got everything you've got all your ducks lined up, and then so that you've got the ability to maneuver. And if you break it down so that like you can self-fund it as well without, then you can sort of sleep at night not stressing, and then you're not going to make any bad or make any sort of like reactionary decisions.
I suppose for anything, especially business-wise, if you do a fly-by-cuff reaction to something, it's never going to be the right one. It's never going to be
good, So like, and that's like break it down into stages. Like that's my first bill I think was like $1,000 because I'm paying my mate who's a designer to just take my pencil drawings and draw them into like a really nice computer model, and that's not even at the industrial design stage. But what it meant was
basic stage to get it.
To take it away from my penciled, sketched up, hand drawn. I wanted it tidier. You know what I mean? Like I sort of even went.
No, I understand too, because I mean, I've had help with the furniture pieces off with Sam. I'll tell you about Sam, a friend, Monkey Boys Workshop, a good friend of mine. And I was doing a chest of drawers a while ago, wanted a hand. And he was, I want to see your drawings because I wanted to know how to do the feet for the chest of drawers because I had no idea how it worked. I knew how the carcass was, I knew what the fronts looked. But what legs do I use? And he goes, "Oh, send me your drawings." I went, "I haven't done any drawings. It's all up here." So, no, so I did some drawings for him to show him what it looked like because I hadn't made it yet. The carcass anyway, you only had the drawer fronts. And he just went, "What the fuck is that?" Because they were illegible. My drawings are illegible. So, but even still, I can use SketchUp and I'm learning to use Blender and a few other bits. But even though my SketchUp drawings are okay, they're good for like showing a client what an alcove unit would look like. They're not at that.
SketchUp's good. SketchUp's awesome. I love it.
Oh, you see, I couldn't draw your rule in SketchUp. I would not be able to do that. It'd take me a week to do that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I draw. So all my drawings I hand draw because I've figured out. So I hand draw all my concepts because I can get my ideas out quicker than I can into SketchUp. So by hand, I can take notes, I can adjust, I can get it all looking right, and then I'll use like your almost like your grease-proof paper to readjust and retrace certain features that I like, and I'll get these perfect line. I'll get it to a point where I've got these perfect, clean line drawings with no shading, no nothing, that I then scan and then ingest them into SketchUp, and then I've got a really good base to start from in SketchUp. I'm not starting from scratch in SketchUp.
I never thought about doing that, about scanning stuff into SketchUp. I never thought about that.
Yeah, and then once you've got those really clean, dark penciled, once I've done my pencil work, then I get a really fine tip ink and draw all over my lines, and then I erase all my pencil marks, so I get these really clean, sharp, crisp, fine detail line that then take into SketchUp, and then once it's into SketchUp, you can you got texture and fill, and you can go over all your lines, and you can do arrows and fonts, and you can build up a full, wicked looking detailed setup that can then go to an industrial designer with so much information in there that when it lands on their screen, they're just like, oh, awesome. Most of the thinking work's been done.
And then all they need to do is transfer that into a proper drawing for for their purposes. Because obviously there's all different levels of drawings, isn't there? Because obviously,
yes.
You have you have engineering drawings, which are totally different to architectural drawings. Yeah, they're all drawings with scales, but they have different elements.
Yeah.
In
So the industrial designer will can go to full modeling drawings, so that or full build files, so a manufacturer can use their files to manufacture.
So then they can then transfer them files into the molds effectively.
Yeah, or the CNC machine. It all just you can that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the architect to provide you the architect's drawings, and that's what an industrial designer is, pretty much. They're like an architect of products.
So I think that Josh has just said that he's just texted me actually saying he is definitely held up with the kids. So yeah, I think we'll call it there because I need to go food shopping, to be honest. We're going out for the day with it being Sunday daytime for us.
Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah, Sunday. We're now at 10 a.m. Sunday for me.
Oh wow, crazy.
Yeah, so I mean, it's bizarre because like, a lot of the times people will be like, "Oh yeah, good morning," and I'm like, "Dude, it's 3 a.m." because I'll be up when I'm speaking to the States. I'll be up at 3 a.m. because it's that they want to talk at Saturday lunchtime. So it's 3 o'clock Friday morning, Friday night. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
So yeah, the time differences always gets us. So yeah, thanks very much for joining us today, Regan.
That's good.
As normal, all of Regan's links will be in the description if you feel like you want to get in contact with him about anything. Again, any questions or comments, please either contact myself or Josh or the Wooden Work Instagram page. We're on all audible platforms. Please leave us a review also. And we shall catch you next week. Thank you very much.